Welcome into another edition of the DFS Report. Happy Friday to everybody out there. It is Friday, January the 24th. Both of our internets, I think, are ready for the weekend. Sorry, a few minutes late here. We were having some reset the internet, reset the router time going on here between me and Zach. Zach, you're already looking pretty fuzzy over there, so we'll see how today's show goes. Honestly, though, like today's show can't possibly go worse than yesterday's. I don't think. I was maybe got a little bit too cocky the night before. I was like, yeah, I nailed everything. I knew exactly how every game was going to go, and it went exactly as planned. Yesterday, it was the worst DFS night of probably my life. The worst betting night in a long time. Just I didn't do anything right yesterday. It was a shit show. So hopefully we can close out the week with a little bit better results tonight. We got a 4-game slate that doesn't start till 7:30. Also ends a little bit early, so should be a fun one. Zach, are you ready to get into it?
You betcha, my man. I want to forget all about last night.
The sooner the better. Before we get into tonight's show, tonight's slate, just a reminder, if you have anything to say in the live chat today, you'll be automatically entered into our draw at the end of the show to win a $50 gift card to nationgear.ca. So all it takes is one comment in the live chat and you will be entered, and we will draw the name at the end of the show. So let's get into tonight's slate. We'll start with the goalies as always. We got Jake Ottinger starting for the Dallas Stars. The Stars did say they've got a couple of game time decisions tonight, but did not give us any idea on who that might be. Adin Hill projected to get the start of the second half of a back-to-back for the Vegas Golden Knights. The New York Islanders will likely roll with Elias Sorokin tonight, most likely going to see Ivan Fedotov on the other side. The Flyers also on the second half of back-to-back. The Winnipeg Jets will most likely be going with Connor Hellebuck. We're confirmed to see Connor Ingram for the Utah Hockey Club, also second half of a back-to-back for them. And then the final game of the night, you've got Arvid Soderblom starting for the Chicago Blackhawks, projecting to see Andrei Vasilevsky for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So kind of some uncertainty between the pipes tonight. A lot of game time decisions. 3 teams on a back-to-back could lead to some interesting things. If you want to join the DFS Discord, link is in the description of the video on YouTube. We'll make sure that you're up to date with all the late breaking news. So here we go. Let's dive into tonight's slate. We'll start with the first game. You've got the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. The Dallas Stars, 3.2 implied total, minus 145 home favorites, 2.7 implied total for the Vegas Golden Knights, plus 131 road dogs on the second half of a back-to-back. Matchup-wise, looks pretty decent. Top 9 against top 9 here most of the night tonight. You're going to see a lot of the top line for the Dallas Stars going up against the Jack Eichel line. That bodes fairly well for the Eichel line. You've got the second line, the Duchesne line. Going to see a lot of the Vegas third line, which is Nick Waugh and company. Better, decent matchup for the third line. Actually, a really good matchup for the third line of the Vegas Golden Knights. And then you're going to see kind of a mix of the bottom 6 here. The fourth line of Dallas is expected to see a little bit of the Jack Eichel line or the Thomas Hertl line tonight. So some hard matching coming from the Dallas Stars tonight. Overall, second highest event game, pace game of the night. The Dallas Stars is top 6. The underlying metrics looking pretty bleak defensively, but they still doing a pretty good job generating offense. Obviously, we know what we're getting out of Vegas 1 and Vegas 2 as of late. Vegas 1's been pretty steady all season long. Vegas 2 is really starting to come on. Thomas Hertl with an empty net goal last night to kind of save my ass there. In my Vegas 2 call, Dorofeyev scored a goal earlier in the game. Or was it Olofsson that scored earlier in the game? Can't remember. But yeah, it didn't matter for me anyways. So even though they did okay, still not enough to save my day. So yeah, this is an interesting game, I think, from a top 6 standpoint here. Both lines, teams top 6 look like they're pretty solid in terms of ownership tonight. Neither top, the top line for the Dallas Stars coming in 5th highest owned, the second line coming in 8th highest owned, and then Vegas much lower on the list. Vegas 1 coming in at just 6%, Vegas 2 coming in at just over 5%. In the grand scheme of things, the charts like the Vegas Golden Knights a lot more than the general public does tonight. Vegas 1 grades out as the 4th best line overall, and the Vegas second line grades out 7th best overall. So to me, the Golden Knights look like a pretty good leverage spot tonight, not really seeing a whole lot of ownership on a night where there's a number of lines over 20% owned and a number of lines over 10% owned. Vegas 1 and 2 both coming in around 5%, looking pretty juicy there. So let's start with the Vegas side of things here, Zach. Vegas 1, as I mentioned, they're going to see a lot of the top line for the Dallas Stars. That's the line that's getting caved in right now. The second line, going to see a lot of the second and fourth line for the Dallas Stars. Second line getting absolutely brutalized. The fourth line's pretty good. This looks like a pretty good setup here for a low-owned Vegas line. And it's a Vegas team that, for the most part, just dominated the Blues last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the spot here for Vegas. I'll be getting to both Vegas 1 and Vegas 2 in my 20 max here tonight. Some pretty low ownership coming in on this Vegas side, and I'm honestly pretty surprised. They've shifted up the lines just a little bit, especially in that bottom six, that third line. Nick Waugh getting back in there on Vegas 3, but pretty easy to build around both these lines. I think Ivan Barbashev drawing the fewest ownership of Vegas 1 here. Jack Eichel seeing the most at 14%. Mark Stone coming in only at 3.6%. I mean, listen, we talk about Mark Stone all the time. He's not a guy who gives you a ton of floor, but he still finds a way to continue to be productive out there on the ice. $6,800 though, that is a little bit on the expensive side here for me, just in general. But it is only a 4-game slate, so I don't mind getting some full stacks of Vegas 1, Vegas 2. Again, just like last night, it feels like they're in a pretty good spot here as well. Pretty cheap line to full stack, $16,100. I think I'll be getting there on both of these lines, probably, a little bit above the field in terms of the ownership. It does feel like a pretty solid pivot spot here. I think I favor Vegas 2 a little bit more than Vegas 1 here tonight. You're just getting a better floor out of these guys. They're a little bit cheaper, and you don't have Mark Stone there at $6,800.
Sorry, I was just writing in the chat. You do sound a little bit robotic. I don't know if that's coming across for everybody else. Maybe you might want to turn the mic off. We'll see how it goes here for the rest of the show. A little bit robotic today, or not. Don't turn your mic off, but maybe turn off your camera. Go dark mode on us again. We always enjoy that. I mean, I can hear you. It's just a little bit robotic. Robot Zach might be pretty good at DFS though. We don't know for sure. The Dallas side, obviously still interested second half of back-to-back here for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is a really interesting power play game, too. You've got Dallas looking at a really good power play spot, number 10 power play over the last 10 games, going up against the 29th ranked PK. And I think for as long as I've done the show, it's one of the first times I've ever seen the top power play going up against the top penalty kill. So that obviously limits the Vegas Golden Knights a little bit, but they look like they're in an okay enough spot at 5v5 where it shouldn't matter much. As good as the power play matchup is for the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights are extremely disciplined, only 2.1 times shorthanded per game. So it kind of limits the overall upside for the Dallas Stars. But I think that, the way the Stars have been going as of late, I'm definitely still interested. I think that this is one of the more intriguing games of the night. You've got, mixes of kind of the top 9 here for the Dallas Stars on the top power play unit. Then the second, Hintz started on the second power play unit last game, moved up for Duchesne halfway through that game. So kind of a messy power play. So if you're trying to get different tonight, maybe some power play stacks of Dallas is a good route to go. Just because, the power play matchup's pretty good. It's pretty messy here among kind of who's on these units. But Dallas overall looks like they're in an okay spot. The matchups aren't terrible. They're not amazing, but they're still above average tonight for that entire top 9. And then we talk about it, right? The second line's done a really good job, even without Wyatt Johnson. You move Maverick Bourque up there. They've been able to continue to generate plenty of chances. They look pretty good. Wyatt Johnson, Jason Robertson have both turned a corner. So, you kind of look at these other two games that we're about to talk about, the Islanders and the Flyers. The Flyers obviously played really well defensively at 5v5 as of late. The Islanders not a team that scores a ton of goals. The Winnipeg Jets can obviously really suffocate you. Utah's done a pretty good job recently. So these two games look like they could be on the lower scoring side of things. And Dallas Vegas really seems like an interesting game and one that could be a little bit higher scoring. And that's why I'm a little surprised on the Vegas ownership. I'm definitely coming in way over the field on Vegas tonight, but I'm certainly going to be still getting to Dallas 1 and Dallas 2. Not grading out with a ton of ownership, 10 and 12% respectively. Really, really like kind of the value you get out of both these lines as well, with Maverick Bourque up there, just 12,700 to full stack. Dallas 2 with Evgeny Dadonov up there, on Dallas 1, just 15,800 to full stack them. So pretty reasonable price tags for both Dallas 6 top lines tonight. What are you thinking here on the Dallas side of the puck?
Well, hopefully I'm sounding a little bit less robotic now. If you guys can let me know in the chat if I'm sounding a little
Not really.
No? Oh my God. Okay, here, hold on one second.
I will hold down the fort here while we correct. Okay. Oh, there. That looks
Camera's
better.
Off. Can anybody hear me better now?
You sound a little better, yes.
A little bit better?
Yes.
All right. Let's roll with this, I guess, for now. Maybe I'll flick the camera on in a little bit here again, see if it starts working again. People in the chat are saying I'm sounding clear. So, okay, never mind. Camera back on. You guys get to see my ugly mug again here. So,
must be me then.
We'll roll with that, I guess. But the Dallas Stars, I like the look of them here tonight too. Solid matchup scores for them. As you mentioned, a higher paced game here. I have no issue getting there. I've actually got Dallas 2 in my head-to-head lineup here tonight. Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, Maverick Bourque. I mean, you want to talk about a way to get some salary relief here tonight. Maverick Bourque at $2,600, drawing just 7% ownership here on this slate. You know, he hasn't been overly productive in his last 20 games or anything like that. But in his one game against the Vegas Golden Knights in his career, he does have a goal. So that's pretty solid there. Nonetheless, a good way to get some salary relief there. That line is just $12,700 to full stack. You're not getting a ton of great power play correlation. You got Matt Duchene and Maverick Bourque, who would correlate well with Thomas Harley on that second power play unit. Yeah, I don't mind getting here whatsoever. It does feel like a game that I'm going to be over the field on, and probably coming in under on the New York Islanders, Philadelphia Flyers game. Feels like a decent enough stand that I'm willing to take here tonight.
Yeah. So apparently it's my internet that's shitty. So I apologize, Robot Zach. Yeah, I thought I was good. Usually it's your internet, but maybe it's me tonight. Some people commenting about my toque. Obviously, I lost all my money last night. Couldn't afford to turn on the heat. Obviously, couldn't afford to pay on the internet bill either. It's been a bit of a rough go here since my big win. You know, my big win came last Friday, though. So hopefully it's just a Friday thing for me. Hopefully
That's right.
We can roll it into tonight. What about Dallas 3? Like, are you interested at all in like a Logan Stankoven, Rupe Hintz mini stack? Rupe Hintz, obviously on the top power play unit, just $4,900, really affordable price tag. Logan Stankoven's been extremely snake bitten as of late. They draw the best matchup on the Dallas Stars side of things. The underlying metrics are still fairly solid. They're going to see a mix of this bottom six here. They're kind of an interesting way to get a little different on this game. I mean, they're not super low owned either, 9 and 8%, but I don't mind getting down to some Dallas 3 tonight either. Rupe Hintz, one of my favorite players in the league, just $4,900, really, really good price tag there. Logan Stankoven's probably going to right the ship eventually at just $4,400. They're really cheap as well. Dallas as a whole is just a very cheap option tonight, and this game is going to soak up a lot of ownership for me because these, you know, you got Winnipeg and the Islanders coming in pretty chalky. But if those two games are a little bit lower scoring and Vegas and Dallas runs it up, I think this is a really good leverage game to kind of get over the field, and hopefully things, you know, fireworks are firing in this game, and we can get a lot of goals and really get some leverage on the field here. So I really like this game. I'm going to be having exposure across the board on both sides. Somebody commented earlier, I can't remember who it was. I'm definitely going to willing to die on the Vegas 2 hill again tonight. They're so good. You know, I'm fine kind of agreeing with the public here. I'll have some Olofsson in the mix, but I'll probably leave him off more often than not. Hurdle Dorofeyev mini stack looks great yet again. They've been just absolutely rolling. Very, very affordable, $5,400 and $5,500. Zach, I'm all in on this game, all across the board. Any final thoughts on Dallas Vegas before we move on?
Yeah, I like the idea of getting down to a little bit of Dallas 3 here tonight. Again, it feels like a fairly low-owned spot here, coming in at just 6.4% full stack. Granted, it is Sam Steele who's kind of dragging that ownership down, because both Hintz and Stankoven projecting for around 8 to 10%. So very similar price-wise, those two guys with Matt Duchene and Jamie Benn. I know for me, I'm 20 maxing here tonight. So I think for some of my lineups where, you know, I've got builds of like Dallas 2 and Tampa 1, as I do in the DFO head-to-head tonight, pretty easy to swap Rupe Hintz and Logan Stankoven in for Duchene and Benn on those lineups. So yeah, definitely a spot I'm going to be getting to quite a bit of tonight as well.
Let's get to game number 2. We've got the Islanders and the Flyers. As I mentioned, the Flyers obviously playing pretty well at 5v5 as of late. They were just absolutely caved in last night by the Rangers, though, was the final on that one, 6-1. I mean, the score, or like the game was probably a little bit closer than the score indicated, right? But still not a strong performance from the Flyers. Not surprising considering I bet on them last night, and basically anybody I liked or bet on yesterday was just an absolute nightmare. So not totally surprised. With Fedotov between the pipes, he's been a little bit better as of late, but you know, the Islanders continue to draw a ton of ownership on this top line, 17,800 projected for the second highest ownership of the night. All three of the players north of 19%. The one thing that is super interesting about this game is if you pull up the handy dandy weekly schedule here, the Islanders have not played since Monday. So they've had 3 consecutive days off. During those 3 days off, the Flyers have played 2 games in that time. So the Flyers are on a back-to-back, but it's also their third game in 4 nights where the Islanders have just been kind of chilling. So a massive rest advantage tonight for the Islanders. I think that's going to probably have a big effect on this game. Matchup-wise, the Islanders don't do a whole lot of it, so it's kind of hard to break things down from a matchup standpoint here. But the top line continues to just provide stellar offensive numbers, and it's pretty easy to see why they continue to grade out with impressively high ownership. That's going to be the case again tonight. But yeah, I think that they're in a really good spot tonight. Am I going to get north of the field? Probably not. I think it's so hard to smack, to be like, yeah, I'm going to play 40% Islanders one. But, meeting the field around 20%, I think is something that I'm willing to do tonight. But one way I think I'm going to target this game a little bit differently is probably just get a little bit more Islanders 2 in the mix. They haven't been nearly as good as the top line as of late, but they're much, much cheaper, just $12,700. You've got Duclair at $3,200. You've got Nelson at $5,500 and Palmieri at $4K. They're basically half the ownership and half the salary. Not half the salary, but $5,000 cheaper. Their underlying metrics aren't quite as strong, but they're still really, really good. The matchup for them is, again, pretty similar. So that is an interesting line to me tonight, and in a way that I'm probably going to try to get some Islanders exposure tonight without just jamming that top line in exclusively. Both teams' power play is pretty terrible. As of late, both teams' penalty kills basically around league average overall. 6th and 7th best power play advantages on the night. Let's start with the Islanders. We'll bring up the Islanders power play here. You got Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, Brock Nelson, Matthew Barzal. We're projecting to see Ryan Pulock on the top power play unit. Reminder, Noah Dobson is out. Ryan Pulock was the one that moved into the top power play unit spot for Dobson after Dobson got hurt in their most recent game. But if I recall correctly, let me just double check here. If I recall correctly, Dennis Cholowski was not in the lineup that day. Yeah, he was not. So I think there's a decent chance Cholowski takes that top power play spot. I haven't heard one way or the other. So we're projecting Pulock. That's what they did last game. But just keep in mind that Cholowski has an opportunity to be on that top power play unit tonight as well. To me, if you're looking at maybe like a New York 2 stack, New York 2 with Cholowski is so cheap, and you can kind of get crazy with them. The rest of your lineup, I don't mind that route at all. Really allows you to pay up another spot. So I like the Islanders top 6 quite a bit tonight. The bottom 6, there's just absolutely no offense there whatsoever. You can probably bank on a couple goals from them now after I've said that. But yeah, the top 6, the highest event game of the night. Let's start on the Islanders side of things. Zach, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I've got interest here in the New York Islanders. It is a little bit of a scary spot for me, given the amount of chalk that they're seeing here. We tried to come in a little bit under the field on New York 1 against the Leafs earlier this week. I know you had faded them a little harder than I did. Did not end up very well for us because Bo Horvat had a couple of goals. Matt Barzal was productive as well. And Anders Lee was the one who really didn't do anything, which sucked for me because I played a lot of Anders Lee on that slate. I never seem to be able to get the New York Islanders right here on pretty much any given slate, but I am going to be getting to them tonight. It does look like a great spot. It's worth noting, you're talking about that rest there. Over the last 2 seasons, the New York Islanders are 6-2 straight up with 3 or more days of rest. They're 4-1 with 3 days of rest exactly. So when they get a chance to get a couple of naps in and a few extra practices, it seems to do well for them. So yeah, I've got interest in this Islanders side of things here tonight. It is worth mentioning too, like the Flyers have been really solid defensively as of late. Their defensive numbers have really improved over this last little stretch here. I think it maybe gives a little bit of pause, a little bit of concern just because of how well they've played defensively. But I think I'm going to be okay coming in, around 20% on New York 1, probably mixing in a little bit of New York 2 as well, just to get some exposure there. They're really cheap to build, around $12,700 here on this slate tonight. So don't mind those options. I don't think there's any reason in the world to play the Islanders' 3rd or 4th lines here tonight. The Flyers side of things, kind of the status quo there as well as per usual for me. A lot of interest in Philadelphia 3 as a decent little punt option, way to save some salary relief with Noah Cates and Tyson Forrester, both of whom continue to find ways to score goals and pay off their salaries on a fairly regular basis. And then, of course, Philadelphia 1, they've also been great as of late here as well.
Yeah, you take a look at the matchups here for Philadelphia. That third line, that Noah Cates line, which we love to play, draws really, really nice matchup here on that side. They're going to see the majority of the top 6 for the Islanders, which is the 2 worst defensive lines that they've got. So yeah, I think that the Islanders' third line once again makes sense as a value option if you want to go that route. They grade out 13th best, still under $10,000. I do just want to bring up though, because like I say a lot, if you watch the show regularly, you know that I'm not always able to include the samples of some of these lines because they are just a little bit too small, and it would just kind of throw the entirety of the charts off. But Sean Couturier, Matvei Mishkov, and Joel Farabee, they don't grade out supremely well in the charts. These underlying metrics are still solid, but they're not amazing. But the actual data in 45 minutes of time on ice has been insane. 5.2 expected goals for per 60. 40.5 scoring chances for per 60, 22.9 high danger chances for per 60. They've been insanely good. Again, they won't really show up in the charts because it's only 45 minutes. I usually look for a sample about double that. So I think they're interesting if they can kind of just be able to continue what they've done so far. They're coming in with almost no ownership whatsoever. And Mishkov's been unbelievable this year. So that line to me is extremely interesting at 11,200. If you're single entering tonight, probably not the line for you. Multi-entry, I think getting a little bit of Philadelphia 2 in the mix is a great way to get different tonight. Hopefully they can stay hot. The Islanders are obviously a solid team. They're not amazing defensively. Losing Noah Dobson is not going to help. Ilya Sorokin's obviously good, but there's a lot to like here. I still think about this Philadelphia Flyers side of things, and the top line really isn't generating that many great looks. They're capitalizing because they're talented players. But if you want to get a little bit different off that top line, which is 13.7%, I don't mind getting to Philly 2 or Philly 3 at all tonight. So very interesting. Zach.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I played a little Philly 2 a couple of nights ago, and they did fairly well for me overall. You're not going to find a line with less ownership than these guys here tonight. Well, you are, but you guys know what I'm saying here. 2.7% projected ownership for these guys as a full stack. So I have no issue getting down there. Joel Farabee, his name's kind of buzzing around in trade rumors right now. He's remained fairly solid, all things considering. 0.7 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 7.3 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Matvei Michkov too, like you mentioned. He's continuing to have a really solid floor here with his shot volume, 9.7 shots on goal per hour of ice time. And truth be told, he's probably been a little bit snake bitten here as of late. 0.6 goals per hour versus 1.3 expected over his last 20 games, shooting just 6% versus 14% on the year as a whole. So, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a good spot for Michkov to kind of get right, find the back of the net, generate some offense. One game earlier this year against the Islanders, Michkov did have an assist. So, hey, who knows? That's not a bad idea as a punt option or a way to get some real low ownership tonight.
I thought you were going to give us a lot more than an assist for Mishkov there, but that's fine. In his last 7 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Does have 16 shots on goal, so over 2 shots a game. Decent shot volume. Rude. Why can't us single entry guys play Mishkov? You can. I'm just saying, I don't know if I'd be full stacking Philadelphia 2 in my only lineup of the night. But yeah, if you're in a super deep single entry and you want to get very different, then by all means, Philadelphia 2 looks like they're in a reasonable enough spot. The matchup is far from ideal, but the underlying metrics, they're averaging 5 expected goals for per 60 in 45 minutes. It's pretty insane stuff. Okay, let's get to game number 3. We've got the Winnipeg Jets and the Utah Hockey Club. The Winnipeg Jets are minus 217 home faves, 3.5 implied total, 2.3 implied total for the Utah Hockey Club, plus 193 road dogs. Matchups for this one. So there's a couple things to go over here actually before we get into the matchups and the stats. So we've got Nikolai Ehlers is a game time decision. Brad Lambert was recalled from the AHL. This is what we're expecting. It's clearly my internet that sucks because how long does it take to load a tweet? If Ehlers doesn't play, we're expecting Perfetti, Nemestikov, Iafallo on the second line. Brad Lambert will slot in on the fourth line. I can't remember. I believe. Oh, actually, I do remember. Cole Perfetti was the one that replaced Ehlers on the top power play unit if Ehlers doesn't play. I believe he's battling an illness. Yeah. So battling an illness, game time decision. If he ends up playing, I left him in because, more often than not, these guys play through illness. But just keep in mind, if you do decide to play Winnipeg 2 tonight, it could be Iafallo in there. It would kind of obviously hurt this line overall if Iafallo up there, but at least Perfetti would get that boost up to the top power play unit. To me, I think if Ehlers doesn't play, Perfetti one-off makes a lot of sense tonight, right? I think he's a nice value option moving up there. This line does have a really nice matchup tonight. They're going to see kind of a lot of the top line and a lot of the bottom 6 of the Utah Hockey Club. Utah Hockey Club, not terrible defensively outside that fourth line, but just not a whole lot going for that second line. We talk about them a lot. I do think the time on ice is going to probably rise up a little bit moving forward with the loss of Adam Lowry. It's going to allow them to use that second line a little bit more. They just lean so heavily on that third line more often than not. But when you look at this Winnipeg team, it's so hard to just look at anybody else other than this top line. They've been supremely dominant, 20,300 tonight. They're drawing a shitload of ownership, which isn't surprising. Most of that due to the fact that they've got the number one power play advantage of the night. Third best power play going up against the 11th ranked PK, while the Utah Hockey Club have been solid on the penalty kill. Take 3.4 times shorthanded per game, by far in a way the highest on tonight's slate. So could be plenty of opportunity for that Winnipeg Jets top line, which obviously fully correlates on the top power play unit. After one game being separated, they are back together. You've got Connor, you got Scheifele, you got Velarde. They've been unbelievable. Velarde coming in at just 14.8%. So full stacking them, probably not quite as high as the 21% suggests. 14.8% is a pretty palpable number here against the Utah team on the second half of a back-to-back. So mostly interested in the top line here for the Jets. I don't mind maybe mixing in a little bit of the depth in terms of kind of some one-off stuff. If Ehlers ends up playing, I'll probably end up with a little bit more than the field on Ehlers. But if he doesn't play, I think Perfetti makes a ton of sense at 3,700 as a one-off or somebody to include in a power play stack with Winnipeg 1. Start with the Jets here, Zach. What are you thinking?
I mean, I think you just covered it all pretty well there, Brock. I agree with you. I like the Winnipeg Jets here on this slate. Winnipeg won back together. I like that. Velarde coming in with the lowest ownership of those three guys, projecting for around 15%. Obviously still up there on that top power play unit, still finding ways to continue to be productive. This line as a whole, all three of these guys are just shooting the lights out as of late with their goal scoring. Kyle Connor, 1.6 goals. Mark Scheifele, 1.9 goals. Gabe Velarde, 1.5 goals all per hour over their last 20 games. So they've been all shooting with pretty high shooting percentages this season that they've all been able to maintain. They're continuing to find ways to be productive night in and night out. Winnipeg too, I got some interest there as well, largely around that Cole Perfetti spot. Nick Ehlers, that could be interesting if he is able to slide in and play tonight. Winnipeg too has the best matchup of any line that we're really going to play. I don't think anybody's going to be getting down to Winnipeg for a whole lot tonight. So really interesting spot here for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm probably going to be well over the field on Cole Perfetti in terms of some one-offs and probably some correlation with Josh Morrissey as well for some mini stack exposure to that top power play unit, which is, as you mentioned, in just a tremendous spot here tonight once again. So no issue loading up here on the Jets tonight in what looks like a really solid spot. The Utah side of things, I've got some interest here in Utah 1 as well. Obviously, it's going to be a tough go for them going up against a Jets team that is solid defensively. Going to see 47% of their ice time going up against that Winnipeg 3 line. But they're not quite the same without Adam Lowry there, right? So the defensive metrics are still solid and all that sort of a thing. But I'm willing to take a bit of a shot here on Utah 1 tonight on a small 4-game slate and see if they can continue to be productive because, boy, 5.1 goals per hour of ice time in their most recent games here. They've been absolutely shooting the lights out. And last night they were productive once again in a real upset spot against the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, this Utah club, literally just beat Connor Hellebuck and the Winnipeg Jets a week ago. Hellebuck was in net that night, right? I'm not remembering that incorrectly. Let me just bring it up. It's right in front of me here. Hellebuck did start, gave up 4 goals on 27 shots in that game. That game was played in Utah, but Barrett Hayton, goal and 2 assists. Josh Stone, 2 assists. Matthias Michelli had a goal. Clayton Keller, a goal and assist. Schmaltz. So the top 6 did all the damage for Winnipeg or for Utah that night. They've both been playing well. The second line in particular is pretty interesting to me tonight, right? They got a really good matchup going up against Winnipeg 1. We talk about it all the time. As good as Winnipeg 1 is offensively, they give up plenty defensively. Really haven't done a great job in that regard so far this season. So it's an interesting matchup there for Utah too, and that's a line that's been playing extremely well. They are seeing literally no ownership at $9,700. Matthias Michelli, $2,900. Barrett Hayton had a huge game again last night, $3,700. Josh Stone, $3,100. Just want to go back to this. So Twins Picks is asking, what is DFS? Is it like the sports books? Is it sportsbook props? No. So DFS is daily fantasy sports. You go head to head with other players. But these charts, for the most part, are still extremely good for props. You can really identify these good matchups. I mean, we're talking about one right now, right? Utah 2, Barrett Hayton, Josh Stone. We like them from a DFS perspective because they have a good matchup and they're cheap. The same thing can be applied to props, right? The odds for those guys to score, put up points tonight are going to be higher. They're still in a good matchup. So for props, it still applies. This show might not be exactly what you're looking for because we're going to be talking a lot of pricing and ownership, and that does not matter in props. But the charts are available for free on Daily Faceoff, and you can sift through these charts, these matchups, the line stats. Like, these are still extremely valuable for anybody that's looking for helps with their props. So the show might not be exactly for you, but the charts certainly will help you in your prop betting this evening, and you can find some great advantages. And Utah 2, I think, is a tremendous option tonight in the props market because they're all probably got pretty long odds at points and goals and all of that. So hopefully that helps. Let's get back into the mix here. Any other thoughts here on Utah? Like, have I shifted your thinking, your ideas at all here on Utah 2? I know you were talking mostly about Utah 1, which I do think is in a great spot. They're fairly low owned. They've been tremendous. But to me, I don't love this matchup that much for Utah with Hellebuck on the road, second half of back-to-back, all of those things. But Utah 2, at least at $9,700, I can be like, hey, no one's playing them. They're super cheap. Let's give them a shot here.
Yeah, I think they're a great get different spot for any huge field contests. We're both entering 20 lineups here tonight on this slate, so I'm definitely going to have some interest in them. Josh Stone, too, really interesting numbers against the Jets in one game earlier this year. That was the one on the 20th. He had 2 assists that night, 11.5 DraftKings points. I really like this spot here for Utah 2 as well. You want to talk about really cheap lines and ways to get yourself really different. They're grading out as the 15th best line to target on the slate overall. $9,700 to full stack these guys. I mean, I can get behind that number there. Michelli and Hayton are both scoring at fairly good clips over their last 20 games, 1.1 and 1.2 goals per hour of ice time. Matias Michelli's really been the shooter on this line over these most recent games, 8.8 shots on goal per hour of ice time. So if you're looking for a shot prop, maybe throw a couple bucks down on that one there because he's been firing the pill a lot and they look like they're in a really solid spot tonight. I'll get behind you on some Utah 2 here tonight.
There we go. Siap says, let's keep this Vegas Dallas ownership down, please. Yeah, terrible place across the board.
We're not talking about it anymore.
Yeah, we're gone. We're gone. Okay, let's get to the final game of the night. We've got Chicago and we got Tampa. Speaking of ownership, going to be a lot on this Tampa Bay side of things. I feel like all these kind of slam spots lately have been hitting, and Tampa Bay sure seems to be one of them. We were all in on Tampa and not so much of a slam spot the other night at low-ish ownership, and it didn't really work out. Tonight, I mean, it doesn't get much better than this for them. The matchup is insane. Let's just, I'm not going to bury the lead here. They have the number one matchup score, the 100% matchup score. They're going to see a lot of the Bedard line. The Bedard line, very bad defensively. The Lightning top line, very good offensively. I mean, what is there to say? This is a smash spot of smash spots. It really is. This line with Cirelli, with Hagel, with Kucherov has been unbelievable together this year. Then you also factor in that, without it being points and Gensel, you get this line at $21,500. I mean, I don't mind the Islanders top line tonight. I don't mind the Winnipeg top line tonight. But them having the same ownership as Tampa Bay tonight, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. The salary difference between the two or the three isn't all that large. Obviously, a little bit bigger to New York 1, but I would much rather come in at 25-30% of Tampa 1 than I would of the Islanders and Winnipeg top line side if I had to pick between the three. This is just such a good spot for them. The power play is in a good spot as well. Second best power play advantage on the night. They obviously fully correlate on a unit. You've also got Nikita Kucherov on both power play units. So there's just so much to like here about this top line. It's the stats, it's the matchup, it's the price, it's the power play, it's everything. This line looks fantastic, and I have no issues getting well north of the field on Tampa 1 tonight. I hope I'm not too much of a, eating too much chalk and it's going to backfire, but man, they look super good. the ownership here suggests they're going to be similarly owned to the other two. I won't be shocked if they come in quite a bit higher, especially in single entry. I think Tampa could be, close to 40% tonight. They're just in that good of a spot. So let's start with Tampa 1. We'll move down the lineup and throughout this game here. What are you planning on doing with them tonight?
Yes.
Okay, figured as much.
Yeah, no, it does look like a tremendous spot here for the Lightning. I think it goes without saying the 100 matchup score. Cirelli, Hagel, Kucherov. I really like the look of these three guys when they are together. The line stats are just tremendous as well, right? I mean, you take a look at it, 79.7 shot attempts per hour of ice time, 3.8 goals against 3.8 expected goals. Monstrous numbers from these three guys when they're together. So, yeah, fire me up on some Tampa 1 here tonight. In this spot, I mean, I'm going to be getting definitely to the field and probably a little bit over the field. For Kucherov, he's the one who's drawing the most ownership of the three tonight, coming in around 35%. But Brandon Hagel at 20%, Anthony Cirelli at 15%. Some easy spots to get well over the field here on. There might be some lineups where I even just go with a Cirelli Hagel mini stack and hope that Kucherov doesn't go slate breaking crazy here tonight. That could be a way to get yourself a little bit different from the field because, it could happen. Who knows? I mean, I'm not going to bank on it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's within the range of outcomes that, maybe it's a little bit of a quieter night for Kucherov than it is for Cirelli and Hagel. So I'm not banking on that per se, but definitely something that could happen. When you're building 20 lineups or 150 lineups, you have to find yourself ways to get different here. So that's one way that I'm going to be trying to get a little bit different in some of my contests. But again, I'll be meeting the field in terms of the full stack ownership for these three guys together, drawing a pretty fair amount of ownership here on the slate. And you can understand why. I mean, the Chicago Blackhawks are a terrible defensive team. So, it's really interesting here. I don't mind this whatsoever. Are you going to be getting down to some Tampa 2 here tonight in like a really low owned spot? Like 8.2% feels really low for these guys. They're only $18,000 to full stack because Michael Yesemont, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is sliding up there tonight. $2,700 for him. He's a guy who, in his depth role on the fourth line, has pretty good shot volume, all things considering. 8.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Drawing just 7% ownership for him tonight. I think he might be a really interesting one-off play tonight.
It's Acemont, confirmed from Hockey Reference, but close enough. Before I get into Tampa 2, I just want to remind people a little bit of a revenge narrative here for Brandon Hagel. Obviously, he spent a lot of time with the Blackhawks, was traded from the Blackhawks to the Lightning. Since being dealt to the Lightning, Brandon Hagel, 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points, and 14 shots on goal in 5 games against his former team. So he's enjoyed going back to Chicago and playing against them, and definitely interested in plenty of Hagel. And yeah, I don't mind the idea of the Cirelli Hagel mini stack either. Obviously, it keeps the salary down. You can build up the rest of that lineup. Maybe even just Cirelli, Hagel, Victor Hedman. Obviously, there's just ways to kind of get a little bit different. If I was building one lineup tonight and I was building on Tampa 1, I might include Kucherov because you don't want to be left kind of holding the bag if he goes off. But yeah, I like the idea of a Hagel Cirelli mini as well. I think it's fine. Then yeah, Tampa 2 makes a ton of sense. I think Acemont's pretty well had decent shot volume his entire career. He's always kind of been a guy that's been a pretty solid producer in kind of a depth role, and now he's kind of getting that opportunity in this top 6. And he scored the other night, did he not? Yeah, no, he had an assist on 2 shots the other night in this role. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Obviously, Point and Gensel, the issue or concern that I have is that their underlying metrics drop off kind of a cliff without Nikita Kucherov. Shocker. But the matchup's still outstanding for them, right? So I'm not don't have that many concerns about them. Obviously, power play matchup's great as well. So yeah, they're on that unit with Darren Radish, so like a Gensel Point Radish stack, Gensel Point Acemont Radish stack, I think is fully viable. And like you said, it's going to come in significantly lower owned. I mean, obviously I think the quality gap is pretty large as well. So it makes sense that the ownership gap is huge because you've got Tampa 1 grade note number 1, Tampa 2 down at 10th. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, I think that they're in a really interesting leverage spot or kind of get different spot here if you want to fade a little bit of that Tampa 1 chalk. I don't play much Chicago. I really don't. But Chicago 1 to me is fairly interesting. The matchup is as bad as it can possibly be against Cirelli, Hagel, and Kucherov. It's disastrous. But I talked about lines where I am unable to include their actual data on here. And now this is going to be hilarious for a couple of reasons. It's Frank Nazar and Tyler Bertuzzi, correct?
That
As
is
I pull
correct.
this up. Okay. So the funny thing is that their defensive metrics are actually considerably worse than what you actually see here, which is shocking because it doesn't look like it can get worse. But the offensive numbers are insanely good as well. So they're giving up 89 shot attempts per 60. They are giving up 4.8 expected goals against per 60. They are giving up 57.3 scoring chances against and 21.9 high danger chances. So if you think that the matchup looks good for Tampa 1 now, the actual numbers are way better. But they are generating a lot of offense as well. They're basically just playing no defense. It's pond hockey out there. They are generating 3.5 expected goals for per 60, which is a lot higher than the charts say. They are generating 36.2 scoring chances for and 11.4 high danger chances for. So the offense numbers are actually a lot better than you might see here. And those offense numbers, even with the worst matchup, are still good enough for them to grade out 12th. With the actual numbers, they would easily creep into that top 10. So they are a line that is somewhat interesting to me. I chirp Tyler Bertuzzi a lot because he's shooting like 50% over the last month. But I was mostly chirping it because it was like, hey, yeah, he's shooting 50%. That's obviously not sustainable. But he was also shooting 1 or 2 times a night. Now he's last 3 games, I think he's got 5, 4, and 5, something like that. You might have it in front of you. The shot volume has gone up a lot as of late. And if that continues, I think it's fine. Frank Nazar, we know, is a talented young offensive player. Definitely has the ability to get it going at $2,700. So at $12,900, I'm willing to take some shots on Chicago 1 tonight. It's probably the only Blackhawks line I'll get to tonight. They have the 5th best power play advantage, which obviously isn't great, but the power play has been solid. They're interesting to me. So those numbers are bonkers. If it turns into a pond hockey match against Kucherov, I don't like their chances, but it should be fun.
Catch your breath, Brock. Holy smokes. Those are some.
I was excited.
Hey, buddy. Wow. Fired up about Chicago 1 tonight. And it's kind of funny because when I was looking at this here, I was like, man, like, why the hell are they drawing as much ownership as they are? Like 12.4%. It kind of had me surprised, and I'm not going to lie. And, it's funny when you look at the past numbers too, like Connor Bedard has played 2 games against the Tampa Bay Lightning in his career. He's got 2 goals and 4 points. And I was like, whoa, like how is that a thing that's possible? Well, in the 2 games in his career against the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's been Jonas Johansson in the crease and not Andrei Vasilevsky. So a little bit of a drop-off in the talent of the goaltenders there from Vasilevsky to Johansson. Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. But, so I was going to come in here and be like, look at these numbers. And they all came against Jonas Johansson.
Hey, just to interrupt, though, this is the front end of a back-to-back. It is entirely possible that it's Jonas Johansson again tonight.
See, and there you go. That's a good point too, right? And if it is Jonas Johansson, like getting a ton of Chicago, maybe not a ton of Chicago 1, like that sounds so weird to say, but like, meeting the field may not be the worst idea at all here for these guys. You did nail it with Tyler Bertuzzi and the shot totals from the last 3 games, 5-4-5. What's really interesting is these last 3 games, Carolina, Bertuzzi, a goal, 5 shots on goal. Vegas, 2 goals, 4 shots on goal, and Nashville, 2 apples and 5 shots on goal. So they're on a little bit of a heater here right now over these last couple of games. Oh my God, Brock, I can't believe you talked me into it, but I think I'm ready to go in on Chicago 1 here tonight. This seems like a really kind of fascinating spot.
Well, and the one thing that's interesting too is like this is the projected matchups, but would you be shocked? Because I sure as hell wouldn't be that Dickinson's line goes up against the top line for the Lightning. Like that would make more sense. And Bedard goes against the point line. If these matchups flip and suddenly their matchup isn't 0, but it's 29, then you instantly feel better about them not facing Cirelli and Kucherov. So, I like Chicago 1. Again, it's probably the only line that I'm going to play from that side. The offensive numbers are good. Hopefully they stay away from the Cirelli line, because if they do, I mean, Tampa 2, not great defensively. Tampa 4, not great defensively. So there is potential here for Chicago to pop off. And as Tom points out, oh my God, Bedard is $6K. He was like what, $7,300? Was he not, like, just recently? I mean, I'm pulling it up here. He was
$7K 2 games ago against Vegas.
Yeah.
$200 against
7,700 bucks on January 10th, and then 73, 72, 7, 6,500 his last game, and now he's $6K tonight. So at 12, like I said, 12,900 to full stack. They make a lot of sense to get there tonight. He's been over 7K the whole season. Yeah, I didn't remember it getting up to 77, but it makes sense. He's been great lately too. So hopefully those matchups switch. They see a little bit less of Sorelli, and I do think Chicago 1 is definitely worth piling on here tonight. And I do think that I'll probably be north of the field for the first time all season. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on to the defensemen and the goalies?
No, 151 Chicago 1 lineups. Let's go, baby.
Oh my God, that is crazy man stuff. We've had a lot of questions about Vegas 3, so maybe we should chat about them really quick before we go. Under 1% ownership, Nick Waugh, Tanner Pearson, Keegan Colasar. The offensive metrics are pretty pedestrian. The matchup, though, is obviously really good. They got the second best matchup score, or one of the best matchup scores on the night. They're going to see a lot of Dallas, too. I think they're okay. I don't mind it, but as a very contrarian play, I might get to 5% of them, but I don't think that it's a line that has a ton of offensive upside. They've only scored 1.6 goals per 60. I like Nick Waugh, the player, but I don't think when I played him a lot earlier in the season when they were banged up and he was in the top power play unit, but in this spot, I don't think that they have enough upside to really kind of break this slate open. I think there's better value options overall. I would prefer Philadelphia 3 at what would that be? Almost the exact same price. I guess they're a little bit more expensive, but I would prefer Philadelphia 3 over Vegas 3 in my opinion. How about you?
Yeah, that's fair. I could get behind that for sure. Nick Waugh, kind of a funny guy, right? $2,900. I've snuck him into so many late lineups over the years, and it feels like every time I play him in a late contest, he pops off and goes crazy for me for whatever reason. They obviously have an excellent matchup here tonight, 96.8. And Waugh himself, 9 games played against the Dallas Stars in his career, 2 goals and 5 points. So, he's had some success going up against Dallas. Obviously, the matchup here is great going up against that Dallas 2 line, which is by far the worst defensive line for the Dallas Stars. I don't think you need to go crazy here in terms of trying to play Vegas 2 or anything like that. But I think they also kind of fit into that mold of, some of these other cheap third line punt options that we like here tonight. So, I think for me, I'll have a little bit of exposure to Vegas 3 just because of that solid matchup score. But I won't be going, anything more than 5, maybe 10% if I'm getting a little crazy. But, probably feel better about a mini stack of Nick Waugh and Pearson. Pearson's been generating a lot of really high quality chances and, some solid shot volume for him too. 7.9 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Granted, he's only playing 12 minutes a night over his last 20 games, but you don't really need much for that to pay off.
Yeah, and I think that shot volume's dried up a little bit, right? He went on that spurt where he was playing in the top 6 for a little bit. He's only got 9 shots in his last 8 games. That's what I was looking at. Colasar doesn't provide much shot volume. There's just not much of a floor for that line. But if they bang in a goal, they are a line that you could pair with a Tampa Bay 1 and still build a reasonable lineup. And I think that's kind of the thought process here for some of the people asking about them. So yeah, I like they have the possibility to bang in a goal tonight at really cheap with that matchup. But the likelihood I think is fairly low, but I don't hate it. Okay, let's get to some defensemen. Obviously, whoever is on the top power play unit for the Islanders is going to get a boost tonight. So whether that's Pulock at $4,300 or whether that is Chalowski at $2,500, I think both are good plays regardless. I think that Adam Pelech at $3,900 is a strong play as well. Him and Pulock probably going to eat a lot of ice time now with Dobson out. Same with Romanov as well. With Scott Mayfield, I think he's all those guys get a bump, right? No Dobson. There's 25 minutes up for grabs. I think all of them get a small bump tonight, and all are pretty good plays in a nice spot against the Flyers. Darren Radish, obviously a strong play again tonight. Michael Kesselring's been really, really solid, just as an absolute rocket. Dylan Sandberg continues to provide a ridiculously good floor on a night-to-night basis. Same with Rasmus Ristolainen. Who else? Oh, Shea Theodore still red hot. Don't mind getting to some Shea Theodore again tonight. So yeah, those are the guys I like. Darren Radish, he's projected for the highest ownership among blue liners tonight. That is not something I ever expected to say, but he's been great and he's still super cheap. So fine with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a really solid play here tonight. Other side of that game in terms of defenseman Chicago, fire me up some Alec Martinez. Haven't said his name a whole lot this year. He was a shot block god for us last year, $4,400. Going to see a bunch of ice time here tonight. Going to have a chance to block a ton of shots as well. So don't mind him or Lucas Crevier if you're looking for some shot block upside there. Alex Vlasic also kind of popping in the charts there. The Dallas defensemen, I got a lot of interest in them. Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen, both power play units, see a fair amount of ice time. Not anymore. Never mind. Nonetheless, I still like these guys. They correlate well with that top 6 at 5-on-5. Adam Pelech looking good at $3,900. A couple of interesting names out there tonight for sure. Should I go back to the well of Nick Seeler? I played him yesterday, and he got me a goose egg in a lineup where I really could have used a couple of points from him.
Nick Seeler, anytime goal is always the play. Favorite value one-off. I'm assuming talking forwards. I mentioned Cole Perfetti earlier. I think he makes a ton of sense. Maybe Nick Paul, I think, is a reasonable play as well in that top power play unit as a value one-off. Probably Paul, probably Perfetti would be two of my favorites if you're trying to get that cheap after them. If it's a little bit more expensive, guys like in that 5K range, Velarde, Dorofeev, guys like that make a ton of sense in that range. But if we're talking under 4K, probably Paul and Perfetti for me. Which Dallas guys would you leave off an onslaught from lines 1 and 2? I mean, I think that answer is pretty simple. I would try to leave off the cheaper guys that don't have a ton of floor, which would be Dadonov and Maverick Bork. Obviously, though, you're talking about a pretty expensive onslaught stack at that point. So then probably Jamie Benn would be one of them. How about you, Zach? What are you thinking on those two questions?
Probably good value plays up front. I like Michael Asimont. $2,700. Did I get it right that time?
Yeah, you did. That's a good one.
Look at me go, eh? Just dialed in
two.
today, boys. Noah Cates, $3,300. I like him. Another good option there. His line mate, Tyson Forrester, both couple of cheap punt options there. Alex Iafallo is popping in the value projections for some reason tonight at $2,800. He's also seeing like 12.5% ownership, which is kind of surprising to me there. So I don't mind him whatsoever. One other thing that's interesting too, another name that kind of popped up to me. Nino Niederreiter in the 2 games against the Utah Hockey Club this season, 3 goals. Clearly loves to play against them, so could be an option there at $3,800, seeing about 10% ownership.
Let's get to the tenders. We've got Connor Hellebuyck right now is the number 1 goalie overall, 12.8 projection. Also the highest owned goalie of the night at 18.9%. Him and Ottinger seem fine. I obviously prefer Hellebuyck. I think he's got a little bit of a cushier matchup. They're super good at home ice. Vasilevsky, highest implied win percentage, going to have probably some volume concerns. Plus, he might not start, and I don't want to be just shoving Vasilevsky in my lineup, and all of a sudden it's Jonas Johansson. That would be a real tough pivot. Do those 2 games start at the same time? Those last 2?
Yeah.
Okay. So you could pivot, I guess, to if you left enough room for, say, Connor Hellebuyck. That's what I would be doing, honestly. I would leave probably $400 in every single one of my. Never mind. He's more expensive. So yeah, if you're playing Vasilevsky, I guess you got that pivot to Hellebuyck. No issues. Sorry, I thought he was 7,800. Sorokin actually is a pretty interesting play tonight too. Second highest owned goalie on the slate. $7,800. That's a nice price tag against a tired Flyers team, well rested Islanders team. I don't mind Sorokin at all. Probably can't get to Soderblom unless you've got some crazy stats about Chicago Blackhawks goalies because they always seem to come true. So I'll leave that to you in a second. Aiden Hill, super underpriced, $7,400. I think he's fine if you want as a pay down option. Looks like I'm going to be eating a lot of chalk between the pipes tonight because I like the 3 highest home goalies the most. Outside of that, it's kind of tough. Ingram has been playing great since coming back. I would maybe go there in Winnipeg Jet fade lineups, but I don't feel super good about it, but he should be an okay play at $7,200. Like I'd rather play him than Soderblom and Fedotov. Who are you playing? My favorite goalies: Hellebuyck, Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Hill.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I like those guys as well. Like I'll probably be pretty heavy on Sorokin tonight. I think that the Islanders are in a pretty good spot here in this game as a whole. And there's some interesting goaltending numbers on this slate. None about Arvid Soderblom though, who has never faced the Tampa Bay Lightning in his career. Could be in for a rude awakening tonight. So we don't have to worry about that. Don't worry, everybody. He is projected to see a ton of shots tonight though. So I don't know though. Feels a little bit too thin for me down there at 7K.
I mean, he's a good like GPP play, obviously, right? Like but we tried that last night with Askarov. It felt the same way, right? Like it's possible. But like they can just light your lineups on fire as well. So you're taking a risk, but they're a good GPP play if it hits. It's just it could just ruin an entire lineup as well. You got to know what you're getting yourself into.
His numbers haven't been terrible this season either. Like 20 games played, 907 save percentage, 5.2 goals saved above expected. It just feels like a really gross spot here tonight. Okay, so a couple of interesting numbers for some goaltenders tonight. Andrei Vasilevsky has played 13 games in his career against the Chicago Blackhawks. Do you want to guess how many wins he has?
How many games has he played?
13 games played against Chicago in his career.
11.
13 wins.
Holy shit.
1 shutout, 2.14 goals against average, 9.
He's never lost to them?
He has never lost to the Chicago Blackhawks. So kind of interesting there. Don't really know if that could go either way, I suppose, here tonight. Ilya Sorokin, 14 games played against the Flyers in his career. 9 wins, 3 shutouts, 943 save percentage. He's been great. Jake Ottinger, he's 4-4 against the Golden Knights in his career. Yeah, I don't know. Sorokin feels really good for me. Incoming Vasilevsky loss. You know what? Like it could happen, man. I mean,
he's not even gonna start. I mean, I hope to God he starts because they have the Red Wings tomorrow. So I hope the Red Wings get Jonas Johansson. It would make more sense to play Vasilevsky against the divisional opponent that's chasing you down in the standings, though. So I'm assuming we're going to see Johansson tonight. That would be my guess, but we shall see. Okay, let's get to the fun of today's show. We've got, well, I mean, it's all fun, but the real fun is the hat trick pick challenge and the daily face-off head-to-head, and then we get the draw at the end of the show. Okay, so if you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, comment your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video, not the live chat. So when the show's over, drop it in the comment section below the video. If your player scores a hat trick, which we had a winner already this week, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear, and who knows, maybe you'll also win the $50 draw at the end of the show, and you have $75. Get yourself a free hoodie or whatever you feel like doing. Before we get to that, let's get to our daily face-off head-to-head. Unfortunately, we ran out of time yesterday, did not have a chance to get to it, but Zach, you won 2 days ago, so you can take it away first.
Beautiful. Disgusting lineup. And oh my God, we both played Connor Ingram. That is absolutely hilarious. I needed to play a cheap goaltender, and I was like, oh my God. It's between it was at first Fedotov, and I was like, oh man, that feels a little bit too gross. Connor Ingram, $7,200. Welcome to the team. So I did something tonight that I don't often do, and I played 3 defensemen. I really wanted to kind of load up this lineup here with Tampa 1 and Dallas 2. And you get some of that correlation on the power play unit with Thomas Harley there, and some 5-on-5 correlation. I wanted Darren Radish in there, $3,500. He plays pretty much all of his ice time exclusively with Tampa 1. And then the last man in was Scott Mayfield. So I needed somebody under $2,800. And I thought, hey, you know what? Let's try and get really different here on this 4-game slate and try and build a lineup that I feel like has some solid upside and is a little bit different from the rest of the field.
I didn't play Darren Radish because I thought for sure you were going to. So now I wish I would have. But I went with the full Tampa 1 stack. Also went with a mini stack of Horvat and Barzell. And I got Pulak on there. I thought he would be kind of the difference maker between. I thought maybe he has a chance to outscore Radish. And I thought for sure you had Radish in your lineup. You do not. Damn it. But anyways, I went Horvat, Barzell, Pulak, and then I went with a mini stack of Maverick Bork and Ilya Lyubushkin because I had no money left, and then Connor Ingram between the pipes. So hopefully you get a couple points out of Bork and Lyubushkin. It's enough to push me over the edge here because, yeah, it's basically going to come down to New York 1 and Dallas 2 on this one tonight.
It could be a fun one.
All right. Who's your hat trick pick tonight, Zach?
Connor Bedard. Break the slate, buddy.
Oh, interesting one. Okay, I am going to go with... give me, man, I have no idea. Brandon Hagel, back in Chicago. Give me Brandon Hagel. Okay, if you want to participate in today's hat trick challenge, like I said, drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube, not the live chat. And before we go, let's get to our spinny wheel. We've got 25 entries today. Again, if you want to participate in or get a chance to win a free $50 gift card to Nation Gear, all you had to do is drop a comment in the chat during the show. So if you want to participate next week, and we do this every Friday. So here we go. Our winner today for $50 Nation Gear gift card is CC Hap 2. Congratulations. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter would be probably the easiest way, unless you're in the DFO DFS Discord. That's definitely the easiest way. But on Twitter, at Brock_Seguin or the Daily Faceoff account at DFO Fantasy, I'll link up with you. We'll get you the $50 gift card to nationgear.ca. Congratulations, CC Hap 2 on the win today. Again, we'll give one away every single Friday. moving forward, Brock's going to lose his mind when Radish Hatties and he finds out Monday he lost the head-to-head. Yeah, for sure. Do I need to be a member to be in those? No, you were in that one. All you had to do was comment, and we get you in. But if you want to become a member, that'd be great too. You can join our DFS Discord by clicking the link in the description of the video. Join the DFS Discord. Community's growing every single day. We provide all the late breaking news to make sure you've got no holes in your lineup. We also chat DFS all day long. Faceoff confirmed to get the start for the Flyers tonight. Thank you, Beebs. And shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. Really has leveled up the show for us, and it makes a big difference. We appreciate them very much. And if you want to get $20 off your first month of Rotogrinders Premium NHL, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. And while you're there, we got over 1,200 live viewers at the moment. Please smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Really helps us grow the channel, helps us grow the show, continue to bring you these shows every single day. It's really nice. We've seen a lot of new voices in the chat as of late. Show is definitely growing. We appreciate you guys coming out on a night-to-night basis. Hopefully you have a little bit more success than we did last night because, yeah, last night was terrible, but we're looking onward and upward here. Another big Friday incoming. Hopefully one of us wins $10,000 tonight, if not more. Best of luck. We'll see you guys back here on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.